Imagine waking up tomorrow and feeling completely unstoppable. No fear, no doubt, no one's opinion shaking you. What if I told you there's one thing, one simple but powerful skill that once you master it, nothing in the world can control you. Your emotions, your focus, your decisions, they all become yours. Life stops happening to you and starts happening through you. You become the driver, not the passenger. Today, I'm going to show you how to take back that control, how to command your inner world, and how to live truly free, powerful, and unstoppable. Most people think their biggest problem is money or time or opportunity. It's not. The real issue, the silent one that decides everything, is emotional control, or more accurately, the lack of it, because the truth is, nothing in your life has power over you until it can change how you feel. Once something controls your emotional state, it controls your decisions. And once it controls your decisions, it controls your destiny. Think about it. The argument that ruined your day wasn't the words. It was the feeling those words triggered. The opportunity you didn't take wasn't because you weren't capable. It was because fear showed up and you listened to it. The habit you can't break isn't stronger than you. It just knows how to push your emotional buttons. People don't fail because of circumstances. They fail because they never learned how to master what's happening inside. Here's what most people don't realize. Emotions are not random. They are patterns. And any pattern you practice long enough becomes automatic. That means if you don't consciously choose your emotional state, your past will choose it for you. Old disappointments, old fears, old conditioning, they step in and run the show without asking permission. That's not freedom. That's emotional slavery. But the moment you understand this, everything changes. Because emotions are not something that happens to you. They are something you do. They're created by what you focus on, what you interpret, and the meaning you assign in a split second. Two people can face the same event. One feels crushed, the other feels challenged. Same event, different meaning, different emotional state, different life. And that's where your power lives. Power isn't in controlling the world. Power is in controlling your state regardless of the world. When you can stay centered when things go wrong, calm when others panic, focused when others freeze, you become unshakable. Nothing owns you anymore. Most people wait for life to make them feel confident, motivated, or strong. That's backwards. Winners don't wait for emotions, they create them. They don't wake up asking, how do I feel today? They decide how they will feel, and then they move their body, their breath, their focus to match that decision. Your physiology, how you stand, how you breathe, how you move, can change your emotional state in seconds. Slouched body, shallow breath, downcast eyes, your brain reads that as defeat. Strong posture, deep breath, decisive movement, your nervous system reads that as strength. You don't need more motivation. You need better emotional mechanics. And here's the part that separates leaders from followers: the ability to interrupt a negative emotional pattern before it takes over. Most people don't notice they're spiraling until they're already deep inside it. But mastery begins with awareness. The moment you feel frustration rising, anxiety tightening your chest, anger speeding your thoughts, that's your cue. That's the moment you step in and say, this stops now. You change your focus, you change your meaning, you change your body. And in doing so, you reclaim control. Because emotions unchecked lie to you. Fear tells you you're not ready. Anger tells you destroy instead of understand. Sadness tells you the past equals the future. These emotions feel real, but they're not always true. They're signals, not commands. And the moment you stop obeying them blindly, they lose their authority. Let me be clear about something: mastering your emotional state does not mean suppressing emotions. Suppression is weakness disguised as strength. Mastery means feeling fully without being ruled by what you feel. It means you can experience pain without becoming it, pressure without panic, challenge without collapse. That's emotional maturity. That's inner power. When you master this, people can't manipulate you. Circumstances can't derail you. Criticism can't define you, because you no longer live at the mercy of what happens. You live at the command of who you choose to be. You respond instead of react. You choose instead of explode. And in that space between stimulus and response, that's where your freedom lives. Every breakthrough you've ever wanted starts here, not with a new strategy, not with a new goal, but with a new level of emotional command. Because once you can control your state, you can access your best thinking, your strongest energy, your highest standards, even in the middle of chaos. And the final truth is this: the world can only control you to the extent that you surrender control of your emotional state. Take that back, and nothing, no person, no past, no circumstance can ever own you again. There is a silent prison most people live in, and the bars are invisible. You can't see them, you can't touch them, but you feel them every time you hesitate to speak, every time you shrink instead of step forward, every time you say yes when your soul is screaming no. That prison is the need for approval, the need to be liked, the need to be validated by people who are just as uncertain, just as afraid, and just as human as you are. From the moment we're young, we're trained to look outside ourselves for permission. Get the good grade and you're praised. Fit in and you're accepted. Follow the rules and you're rewarded. Slowly, without realizing it, we wire our nervous system to believe that our worth comes from other people's reactions. And once that happens, control leaves your hands, because anyone who can make you feel rejected can make you feel small. Anyone whose opinion you fear can steer your decisions. Think about how many choices you've delayed because you were worried about what people might think. How many opportunities you talked yourself out of because you didn't want to look foolish. How many times you betrayed your own standards just to avoid discomfort. That's not weakness, it's conditioning. But what's conditioned can be unconditioned, and that's where your freedom begins. Here's the truth. Most people never face approval as a moving target. You can spend your entire life chasing it and never catch it. Change your behavior and one group applauds while another criticizes. Play it safe and you're ignored. Stand out and you're judged. No matter what you do, someone will misunderstand you, disagree with you, or disapprove of you. So if disapproval is inevitable, why let it control you? The moment you need validation, you hand your power away. Because now your emotions, your confidence, even your identity are outsourced. You're no longer living from the inside out, you're living from the outside in. And that's exhausting. It's the reason so many people feel drained, anxious, and disconnected from themselves. They're performing instead of living. Detaching from external validation doesn't mean you stop caring about people. It means you stop letting their opinions decide your worth. It means you can listen without obeying. You can receive feedback without collapsing. You can be criticized without being destroyed. You move from approval seeking to self-trust, and self-trust changes everything. Watch what happens when someone no longer needs to be liked. Their voice gets clearer. Their posture changes. Their decisions become faster and cleaner. They stop explaining themselves to people who are committed to misunderstanding them. They stop asking for permission to be who they already are. That's not arrogance, that's alignment. Most people confuse confidence with arrogance because they've never experienced grounded self-worth. True confidence is quiet. It doesn't need applause. It doesn't demand agreement. It simply stands. When you know who you are and what you stand for, approval becomes optional, not essential. Here's a powerful distinction. Opinions don't have power, meaning does. Two people can say the same words to you. One devastates you, the other doesn't even register. Why? Because of the meaning you assign. If you believe someone's approval determines your value, their opinion feels like a verdict. If you know your value is non-negotiable, their opinion becomes just information, useful or useless, but never defining. And let's be honest, many people fear judgment not because it's true, but because it threatens belonging. Humans are wired to connect, but belonging doesn't require self-betrayal. The deepest form of belonging comes when you belong to yourself first. When you abandon yourself to fit in, you lose both respect and connection. When you honor yourself, the right people rise and the wrong ones fall away. That's not loss, that's clarity. There will be moments when choosing yourself costs you comfort. You might be misunderstood. You might disappoint someone. You might outgrow relationships that were built on the old version of why. That's not failure, that's evolution. Growth always disrupts dynamics that rely on you staying small. The paradox is this: the less you need validation, the more influential you become. People are drawn to certainty. They trust those who are anchored. When you stop chasing approval, you start leading, not because you're trying to, but because your energy changes. You're no longer asking, am I enough? You're declaring it through your actions. Freedom shows up when you no longer negotiate your self-worth. When praise doesn't inflate you and criticism doesn't crush you, when you can take feedback, extract the lesson, and leave the rest behind, that's emotional sovereignty. That's inner authority. And the moment you stop looking outside yourself for permission to live, you realize something profound. No one was ever holding you back. You were waiting for a green light that never existed. So here's the line that matters. Once your worth is self-defined, no opinion can ever control you again. If you want to understand why most people feel overwhelmed, distracted, and powerless, look at where their attention lives. Control of focus is control of life. Because whatever consistently holds your attention ends up shaping your emotions, your decisions, and ultimately your results. Most people don't lack ability or intelligence, they lack command over their focus. And without that, even the most talented person becomes scattered, reactive, and stuck. Your mind is like a spotlight. Wherever you point it, that area grows brighter, larger, and more important. When your focus is locked onto problems, problems multiply. When it's locked onto fear, fear feels overwhelming. But when you deliberately place your attention on solutions, progress accelerates. Life doesn't get better or worse on its own. It expands in the direction of your focus. Here's the challenge. We live in a whir. LD designed to steal attention. Notifications, opinions, headlines, endless comparisons, all of it pulling you outward. And every time your focus is hijacked, your power leaks away. You can't build a meaningful life on fragmented attention. You can't make strong decisions when your mind is scattered across 1,000 distractions. Most people wake up and immediately surrender their focus. They check their phone, scroll someone else's life, absorb someone else's agenda, and by the time they stand up, their emotional state has already been influenced. They don't choose their mood, their thoughts, or their direction. The world chooses it for them. And then they wonder why they feel behind before the day even begins. Focus isn't about willpower alone. It's about intention. It's about deciding in advance what deserves your energy and what does not. If you don't consciously choose your priorities, the loudest voice will do it for you. And loud doesn't mean important. Often it means irrelevant, urgent looking, or emotionally charged, but not aligned with where you're going. Think about how often your mind replays the same worry, the same regret, the same imagined future disaster. That's not problem solving. That's emotional rehearsal. You're training your nervous system to stay stressed, anxious, and defensive. And the more you rehearse it, the more natural it feels. Focus works both ways. Whatever you practice mentally becomes your default. But here's the empowering part. Focus can be trained, just like a muscle. At first it wanders. That's normal. But every time you bring it back intentionally, you strengthen it. You shift from unconscious attention to conscious command. And that shift changes how you experience everything. When you learn to redirect your focus in moments of pressure, you reclaim your power. Instead of asking, what if this goes wrong? You ask, what nay? Adds to happen now? Instead of replaying what hurt you, you ask, what can I learn and apply? The question you focus on determines the quality of your answers. Better questions create better states. Better states create better actions. High performers don't have fewer problems. They have a different focus. When something goes wrong, they don't dwell on blame or drama. They lock onto what's controllable. They narrow their attention to the next effective step. That's not denial. It's discipline. It's the difference between being busy and being effective. Your focus also determines your emotional state. Anxiety is focus on uncertainty without a sense of control. Confidence is focus on capability and resourcefulness. Gratitude is focus on what's already working. Frustration is focus on obstacles. Change the focus and the emotion follows. You don't need to fight your feelings. You need to redirect your attention. And let's talk about comparison. One of the greatest thieves of focus is measuring your life against someone else's highlight reel. Every moment spent comparing is a moment stolen from creation. You weren't designed to live someone else's path. You were designed to master your own. The only comparison that matters is who you are today versus who you were yesterday. When you command your focus, distractions lose their grip. You stop reacting to every stimulus. You become selective, intentional, present, and presence is power, because when you're fully present, you hear more, see more, and respond with clarity instead of impulse. This level of focus also protects your emotional independence. When your attention is anchored, other people's moods don't easily infect you. External chaos doesn't immediately become internal chaos. You stay centered, you stay deliberate. And that steadiness is what people trust, what opportunities respond to, and what progress require. The truth is, you don't need more time. You need better focus. Time expands when attention is disciplined. Life feels fuller when you're actually in it instead of mentally everywhere else. And the more you practice choosing your focus, the less the world can choose it for you. So remember this, wherever your focus goes, your power flows. And when you decide where your attention lives, nothing else gets to decide who you become. Most people underestimate the voice inside their own head. They walk through life thinking that thoughts are just thoughts, feelings are just feelings, and the world outside is what shapes them. But the truth is far more powerful than that. The strongest force in your life is not luck, circumstance, or even talent. It's the conversation you're having with yourself every single day. And if you don't take control of it, it will take control of you. Think about how often you say things to yourself that you would never say to anyone else. You replay failures, criticize your appearance, question your worth, or predict disaster. You treat your own mind like an enemy. And the tragic part is your brain doesn't know the difference between a story you tell yourself and reality. Every word you feed it, Every judgment you make, every fear you rehearse becomes a script your body and mind live by. If your self-talk is negative, your life feels heavy, reactive, and limited. If it's empowering, your life feels expansive, creative, and unstoppable. The inner dialogue shapes your identity. If you tell yourself, I'm not ready, you act unprepared. If you tell yourself, I'm not capable, you shrink in opportunities. If you tell yourself, this is too hard, you stop before the breakthrough. And the more you repeat these messages, the more automatic they become. Before you even notice, your thoughts have become chains that hold you in place. The good news is that self-talk is not fixed. It can be trained. You can consciously create an inner dialogue that serves you rather than sabotages you, but it requires awareness. You have to first notice what you're saying to yourself. Most people don't even realize how toxic their own thoughts are because they're on autopilot. The first step to mastery is awareness, listening to the voice that has been guiding your actions silently, without question. Once you hear it, you can begin to intervene. You can challenge thoughts that limit you and replace them with ones that expand you. You don't need fake positivity. You need accurate, empowering, and resourceful self-talk. Instead of saying, I can't, you say, I will find a way. Instead of saying, this is impossible, you say, what can I do to make this possible? Instead of waiting for courage to show up, you tell yourself, I act now, courage will follow. Words are not empty. They are commands that program your body, your emotions, and your results. But controlling your self-talk isn't just about motivation. It's about mastery over your state. The most successful people in the world don't have fewer problems. They have a different internal dialogue. When fear arises, they speak to themselves differently. When doubt shows up, they reframe it. When pressure hits, they anchor themselves with words that fuel confidence. Self-talk shapes your physiology, your focus, and your emotions simultaneously. Change the words and your entire experience shifts. Here's something most people don't understand. Your inner voice can either reinforce weakness or create strength. Every time you say, I'm not good enough, it programs hesitation. Every time you say, I'm capable, it programs action. Every time you focus on limitation, you tighten your world. Every time you focus on possibility, you expand your world. Your self-talk is a lever, small, almost invisible, but capable of moving mountains. The next level of mastery is becoming proactive with your dialogue. You don't wait until stress hits to suddenly speak to yourself positively. You intentionally build a script for life's challenges. You anticipate what your fears will whisper and prepare your answers. You rehearse strength, resilience, and resourcefulness. This is how champions train, not just in skill, but in the voice that guides every decision, every action, every moment. And let's be honest, many people fear change because they believe their thoughts are permanent. They think this is who I am, or I can't change the way I think. That's a lie you've been told by habit, not reality. Thoughts are not facts. They are habits. And habits can be reshaped. Every time you interrupt a negative thought and replace it with a constructive one, you strengthen your control over your inner world. You shift from being a passive passenger in your life to the driver of it. The inner dialogue also determines how you handle challenges. Two people can face the same failure. One spirals into blame and despair. The other analyzes, adapts, and acts. The difference is the story they tell themselves. Your life is the reflection of the narrative you carry internally. Change the narrative, and the reflection changes immediately. Here's the most important part. Mastery of your inner dialogue isn't just for tough times, it's for every moment. It shapes relationships, energy, creativity, and influence. It shapes how you speak to your children, how you lead your team, how you love yourself. Every word you think and say internally sets the standard for the quality of you, our life. And the ultimate truth is this: nobody can give you the control that comes from mastering your self-talk. Teachers, mentors, friends, or circumstances can influence you, but the conversation in your head is yours and yours alone. Once you take authority over it, the power of external events diminishes. You become the source of your strength. You become unshakable because the foundation of your state, your actions, and your identity no longer relies on anything outside. So start today. Listen carefully to your inner voice. Challenge every thought that limits you. Replace it with words that empower, inspire, and command action. Speak to yourself as the person you intend to become, not the one you fear you are. Train your mind like you would train a champion's body, and watch as your life responds with equal intensity. And the moment your inner dialogue serves you rather than controls you, nothing outside can ever dictate the course of your life again. Most people live their lives in reaction. They wake up and respond to what happens to them instead of deciding what happens through them. A text message, a comment, a problem at work, a sudden crisis, it hits them and immediately they feel pulled, pushed, and controlled. Their emotions spike, their mind races, and their decisions are hijacked. That's what reaction feels like. And the tragedy is it makes life feel chaotic, uncontrollable, and exhausting. But here's the secret. Power is not in reacting. Power is in choosing how you respond. And the space between stimulus and response is where freedom lives. Think about it. How many times have you acted in the heat of the moment and later wished you hadn't? A harsh word, a frustrated gesture, a rushed decision. These are all reactions, not intentions. Reactions are the default mode of the untrained mind. They are impulsive, emotional, and often destructive. The reason people are controlled by circumstances is that they never pause long enough to insert intention into their behavior. They allow the external world to dictate their internal state and ultimately their actions. Living intentionally doesn't mean life is easier. In fact, it often means life is harder at first because you're resisting the natural pull of autopilot. It's easier to snap, to vent, to react. It feels immediate. It feels justified. It feels normal. But normal does not equal powerful. Powerful people do not allow the immediacy of external events to dictate the quality of their inner world. They step into the pause. They breathe. They observe. They decide. And in that small but decisive moment, they reclaim control. Every challenge, every confrontation, every sudden disappointment is a test. It's a test not of circumstance, but of mastery over your internal response. When someone criticizes you, you can choose to take it personally or to take it as information. When plans collapse, you can choose despair or action. When fear whispers, you can obey it or confront it. The choice is yours, but only if you pause long enough to see it. Most people never pause. They react first and rationalize later. That's why regret is so common. That's why anger festers, relationships break down, and opportunities slip away. Reaction is short-term. Intention is long-term. Reaction destroys options. Intention expands them. Reaction amplifies stress. Intention amplifies power. Learning to replace reaction with intention starts with awareness. You have to notice the pattern, acknowledge the impulse, and insert a deliberate response. It's not about suppressing feelings. It's about choosing which feelings will lead your actions. You might feel fear, frustration, or irritation, but you don't have to act on it. You can act from clarity, not chaos. That's the essence of emotional S. Over NT, that's where real freedom exists. Here's another truth. The external world will never stop triggering reactions. Life will always throw unexpected events at you. People will always say things you don't like. Problems will always appear without warning. The key is not avoiding triggers, it's controlling the response. If you wait for life to be smooth before acting intentionally, you will wait forever. Mastery begins in the middle of the storm, not before it. Every time you choose intention over reaction, you reinforce a new habit. You prove to yourself that you are not a slave to circumstance. You prove that your decisions are yours and yours alone. This is what separates people who feel perpetually controlled by life from those who feel unstoppable. The difference is rarely talent or luck. It is the ability to live intentionally under pressure. When you respond intentionally, your energy becomes strategic instead of scattered. Your decisions carry weight instead of being impulsive. Your emotions are allies instead of enemies. And the results you create are far greater than anything reaction could generate. This is why people who master intention are not only more effective, they are magnetic. Others are drawn to their calm, decisive energy because it communicates mastery, not chaos. The space between stimulus and response is tiny, but it is infinitely powerful. In that gap, you choose meaning. You decide what your emotions serve. You shape your actions. You reclaim authority over your life. Most people never notice it because it is subtle, but subtlety is where mastery grows. It's the small, consistent choices, the pause before speaking, the breath before reacting, the reflection before deciding, that compound into unstoppable power. Let's be clear. Intention is not passive. It does not mean waiting quietly for life to happen. Intention is active, deliberate, and courageous. It is the willingness to face whatever arises and choose action based on your highest standards, not your lowest impulses. It's the difference between being a victim of circumstance and being the architect of your experience. And here's a payoff. When intention becomes your default, the world no longer controls you. Pressure becomes fuel, criticism becomes insight, chaos becomes opportunity. You are no longer at the mercy of events. You are the force that shapes them. That is freedom. That is power. That is living without being controlled by what happens around you. So remember this, the moment you replace reaction with intention, you step into your power, and nothing outside you can ever dictate the course of your life again. Most people live their lives buffeted by circumstances, tossed around by the opinions of others, and defined by whatever situation they find themselves in. They think identity is something that happens to them, that life writes their story, and that their sense of self is a product of what the world allows them to be. But the truth is the opposite. Your identity is the foundation of your freedom. The moment you decide who you are, what you stand for, and what you will not compromise, nothing outside of you can control you. Because when identity is anchored, circumstance becomes irrelevant, opinion becomes noise, and challenge becomes fuel. Think about how many times people let life define them. They chase titles, approval, money, or recognition, believing that these external markers will tell them who they are. And when they don't get them, they feel lost, uncertain, and powerless. Their sense of self is like sand in a storm, shifting with every gust of external influence. But identity-based control works differently. It doesn't bend to circumstance. It doesn't shrink under criticism. It is rooted, immovable, and unwavering. The first step is clarity. You have to decide who you are, not based on what you do, but based on the principles, values, and standards you refuse to compromise. Your actions flow from that. Your choices, your focus, your energy, they all align with the identity you define. Most people never ask themselves this question, who am I at my core? Instead, they define themselves by what they achieve, what others say, or what is expected. But identity is not external, it is internal. Once you anchor yourself there, the world loses its power to shift you. When your identity is clear, decisions become simple. A person who knows who they are doesn't have to negotiate their values in every situation. They don't waver with criticism or applause. They don't chase trends or bend to peer pressure because the internal compass is fixed. Every choice either aligns with that identity or it doesn't. And over time, alignment becomes automatic, effortless, and decisive. The second step is consistency. Identity is not built in a day. It is forged in repeated decisions, small actions, and disciplined habits. Every time you act in alignment with your values, you reinforce the identity you want. Every time you compromise your standards, you weaken it. Identity-based control is cumulative. It is the sum of choices that consistently reflect who you intend to be, regardless of circumstance or convenience. This is why identity matters more than motivation or circumstance. Motivation fluctuates, external conditions change, and talent alone is not enough. But identity is a constant. It is a lens through which everything in your life is filtered. When a person's identity is anchored, external chaos does not disturb their course. Opportunities are embraced, setbacks are navigated, and pressure is endured, all because the foundation inside is unshakable. Identity-based control also protects you, our emotional state. When you know who you are and what you stand for, you no longer live at the mercy of other people's approval or disapproval. Criticism becomes a mirror for reflection, not a weapon for destruction. Praise becomes a bonus, not a requirement, because your worth is defined internally by the standards you set, not by the applause or condemnation of others. Here's the key. Identity is not static. It is not a label you cling to mindlessly. It is deliberate, intentional, and adaptive within the boundaries of your values. You can grow, expand, and evolve while remaining anchored to your core. In fact, that is the ultimate form of strength, being able to navigate life's complexities without losing yourself. People who are mastered by circumstance, by comparison, or by chaos are those whose identity is weak, undefined, or borrowed from the world. People who are unstoppable have created an internal architecture that cannot be shaken. When you build identity-based control, fear loses its grip. People can try to intimidate you, pressure you, or distract you, but when your sense of self is solid, external threats are powerless. Setbacks do not define you. Failure does not determine you. The opinions of others do not control you. You respond instead of reacting. You act from alignment instead of chaos. And that is the ultimate form of personal power. The world will constantly test your identity. It will offer temptations, distractions, and pressures to compromise. It will reward conformity and punish authenticity. But your response determines whether those external forces control you or whether you control them. Every choice to act in alignment with your defined identity reinforces your power. Every choice to compromise erodes it. Identity is not abstract. It is practical, actionable, and measurable through the decisions you make each day. Here's the paradox. The stronger your identity, the more flexible and adaptable you become. You are anchored internally, but not rigidly. You can innovate, expand, and explore while remaining true to your core. That is why the most influential people are not those who are blindly reactive to circumstances. They are those who are immovable inside while navigating fluidity outside. Most people live reactive lives because their identity is undefined. They chase goals, achievements, and recognition as a substitute for self-definition. But true power comes from knowing that your identity precedes your results. It does not depend on what you accomplish, who agrees with you, or what the world gives you. It depends on who you decide to be consistently, deliberately, and uncompromisingly. And once you reach that level, freedom is inevitable. When your identity is anchored, the external world can challenge you, pressure you, even attempt to derail you, but it cannot succeed. Your sense of self is independent of circumstance. Your decisions are consistent with your highest standards. Your emotional state is anchored. Your focus is clear. And in that space, you become unstoppable. So remember this, once you define your identity and refuse to compromise it, nothing outside you can ever control the course of your life again.